My name is Tyler, and I took the Bible and its influence on Western civilization while I was a student at Argyle with Mr. Terrell. I heard about the class going into my freshman year whenever I was looking at my course guide for the upcoming school year. And my mom kind of pointed it out to me on there that there was going to be a Bible literature class that was something that I could take. And I signed up for the class that year, but it didn't make. But just kind of because of my desire to take it, I kept signing up for it. And then eventually going into my junior year was whenever the class finally made. And for me, one of the most surprising things that I discovered was just how much goes into the way the Bible was written. I had never looked at it from a literature standpoint, so looking at the book of Psalms as like poems and the way that that's something that can be expressed in songs, I just more looked at it as like a writing by King David. Abraham Lincoln talked about like a house divided against itself can't stand. I didn't connect that to the Bible at all until we got to that part in Scripture. And then Mr. Terrell gave us like real world examples every time that something came up of here's what you're learning and here's how it connects to something in Western civilization. So I had never bridged that gap before. And then also looking at how many movies actually pull biblical themes. Mr. Terrell gave us this example from The Lord of the Rings where there's two brothers and they kind of get jealous and one of the brother kills the other brother, and he kind of explained how that's a reference to Cain and Abel and how Cain killed Abel because of his jealousy. So as we kind of got to break down stuff like that, I learned that those are things that are taken into our modern world a lot more than I would have originally given them credit for. I think my biggest highlight was whenever we talked about the crucifixion of Jesus. Mr. Terrell really broke down the process of the crucifixion and what went into that during that time period. I'd always looked at it as Jesus was up on a cross, but it was actually a really drawn out process of someone carrying their cross, the different ways that the Romans would use it and why the Romans chose to use crucifixion, and how that actually kind of portrayed back into all the prophecies that went into Jesus in the Old Testament. I think it was definitely an excitement whenever we learned something new. So like I talked about the crucifixion, that was something that I can remember talking to a couple of my friends about just because I had never looked at it that way before and they had never thought that that was something that was so in-depth, so it really just kind of opened our eyes to it. Now that I am in college, I get to do a lot of things where I'm looking at text and breaking down text, which is something that Mr. Terrell really had us do with each assignment. We would go and we would take the book of First Chronicles, for example, and we would really break down all the stories in it and the different perspectives and preferences that are kind of mentioned throughout the book. And so that's something that I can do with my current textbooks, with current books that I'm reading. I would recommend this class just because it really helped me learn how to analyze literature. My sister ended up taking it the year after I did, and so it was cool to show her how much I got to learn from it, and that really encouraged her to want to take the class more. Any encouragement for someone that's kind of having questions about taking the class, I think it's a really good opportunity to just see how much the Bible's influenced the world we live in today. You get to learn about all the different themes that are present kind of in our everyday lives. So it really helps you kind of go out into the world with just a different kind of eyesight.